Hi, my name is Rebecca Hansen, and today I'm going to talk to you about how to help an international student prepare for the F1 student visa interview. Now, first, I'm sure you're wondering, why do I need to know this? Well, sure, certainly the vast majority of people who work at NKU or who are students at NKU will not ever have to talk to an international student about preparing for this process. However, if you go to school or work at NKU, you're going to most likely come into contact with one or many international students who are attending. And I just wanted to give you a glimpse into what it's like to actually go through the steps to get here in the first place. So, just a brief overview. I'm going to talk about the steps that an international student has to go through before they even get to that visa interview step, the burden of proof that is on the student during the visa interview, some common questions that a visa officer might ask in order to discover if they have met that burden of proof, some common mistakes that international students can make during the process, what to do if an international student is denied their visa, and then just some final thoughts. So, first, these are the steps. Step number one, find the right school. And finding a school in the United States, you have to make sure that the school that you are wanting to attend can actually host international students. So a lot of international students go to high school or university, or they go to an English language program. So not every school in the United States can actually host them. So they have to do their research, find a good fit school with the program that they want, get admitted in the first place. And then on to step two. Once they are admitted, they have to show proof of funding for 1 full year. And that cost is determined according to every individual school. That includes the tuition and fees, any housing, meals, anything like that. The scholarships are subtracted from that, and then the student has to show the rest of that funding. Now, once they've done that, then the school sends them what's called a Form I-20, and that's specific to F1 student visas. So once the student gets their I-20, they are then able to pay the fee. There is a fee that you have to pay on top of everything, the I-901 fee that you pay to the US government. You print off that receipt, and once you have the I-20 and that receipt, then you're able to move on to step four, which is to schedule the student visa appointment. So the student has to do all of these steps to finally get to that magical student visa appointment. So I mentioned before, there is a burden of proof. International students during the visa interview process have to prove they are a serious student, that they have the ability to pay for the entire program. So even though on the I-20 they only had to show the 1 full year, the visa officer might dig a little deeper if they suspect that the student can't really afford the entire four-year program, or they don't really have a viable way to sustain their ability to pay for the program. And then finally, the intent to depart the US. So there are immigrant visas and non-immigrant visas, and an F student visa, like a B visitor visa, is a non-immigrant visa, which means that the visa officer has to be convinced that that student intends to leave the United States once it is time for that visa to be done. Now, all of these things are specific to the Immigration and Nationality Act, so the INA, Section 214B, and I just mentioned that because I'm going to be talking about that in a little bit as well. So, here are some common questions that the visa officer might ask an international student during their interview. Now, keep in mind, the visa officer has to go through a lot of these interviews. So the average interview is about 2 to 4 minutes. And in that time, the visa officer has to determine whether that burden of proof, those three items, have been met by the student. So in order to suss out what the student is able to prove, the visa officer might ask these questions. So as I'm reading them, think to yourself, which area, which burden of proof might this fall under? So why did you choose this school or program? So oftentimes students applying to NKU are asked, why NKU? What attracted you to this school? Why are you planning to study X? Why do you want to go to the US? Now, both of these are important because sometimes an international student wants to study, let's say, computer science, but in their country, there really isn't a computer science program that is readily available. So, wanting to go to the US and wanting to go computer science are linked, right? Now, how are you going to pay for your program of study? This one is a little tricky because on the I-20, the student, of course, just has to show that they can afford that first full year, but the visa officer is also going to look to see, well, I see that you have enough in savings for 1 year. The program is 4 years. Your parents make this much money a year, and after expenses, they can't save a whole lot. What about the other 3 years of your 4 year program? So that's going to be a tricky conversation that some students have to have with the visa officer. Next, what are your plans after you graduate? Now, on an F1 student visa, there is an option to work beyond the student visa called OPT, or optional practical training. And depending on the type of degree, it can be 12 months, or they can apply for 2 more 12-month extensions if they're on a STEM program. So that is part of the student visa. So students can talk about the fact that they hope to get a good internship, to get good work experience, but they also have to mention that they plan to leave the United States, because remember, it is an F1 student visa, non-immigrant visa, right? And then finally, have you or one of your family members visited the US before? Now, this one, interestingly, is important because if a student has visited the US, and let's say that they were on a B tourist visa, they were in the US for 2 weeks, they came back, they were compliant with everything, that actually goes in the student's favor because it shows that they were able to abide by the rules of a non-immigrant visa. However, if they have a family member who went to the US and didn't abide by the rules and maybe overstayed their visa, then that's not going to go well in the student's favor. So, some common mistakes I see students making. Now, being too chatty and being negative or shy all sort of go into the first thing that we tell students, which is when you go up to the counter, be polite, smile, make eye contact, and answer every question shortly, concisely. Don't overdo it with the oversharing, because they have 2 to 4 minutes. They're just going to want to know yes, no, why this, why that. So be very precise, be very concise. Make eye contact, smile, speak clearly. Also, sometimes students are not prepared for the interview to be held in English, so we are sure to let them know that ahead of time so that they aren't surprised by that. We also really strongly caution students against making a prepared speech, reciting a prepared speech. So when I prepare students, I ask them questions, and then as soon as they give me a genuine answer, I say, that right there, see, just the way that you answered that. Because honestly, the more visa officers I talk to, the more consulate officials I speak with, the more I hear the word genuine. They want the students to give them a genuine answer. And I know it's terrifying to be up there and doing the student visa interview, and the entire situation is scary and unnatural. So to tell an international student, hey, by the way, you have to spend these 12 plates and also be genuine, it's a little difficult, but I have to remind the students of that. Sometimes students share that their intent is to eventually stay in the United States. Now, I never ever tell a student to lie during their visa interview. However, they don't know the future. They don't know if they are in fact going to get a visa and stay in the United States and all of that is going to happen. So if they don't know that for certain, then maybe they shouldn't be sharing that, because honestly, it's a non-immigrant visa and they're going to automatically be denied if that's something they're sharing. And then finally, talking more about the jobs they intend to get than about the school they intend to go for. Remember, it's a student visa. So your primary responsibility, the primary reason for you to be in the US is to be a student. Now, what if a student gets denied? So I always go through the entire interview with the student. What were they asked? What were your answers? And then sometimes the visa officer will actually circle one of the reasons, that burden of proof. They'll circle one of those burdens that the student hasn't met properly. So I always go over that with the student so that when they reapply, they have to bring something new with them. We want that something new to be related to the section in INA Section 214B that the student did not meet. So, final thoughts. I know that's a lot of information. I threw a lot at you, but I really hope that now when you work with international students or you have them in your class, you have a little bit of a better idea of everything that they went through, all the hoops they jumped through just to even be here in the first place. So please be kind to them, help them out, and know that they really, truly do want to be here. Thank you.